Hey guys, tonight we drift back to a time when writing was young and the gods still walked in shadows. The night outside may be quiet, but in here, under this blanket of breath and darkness, we're heading into the clay-scratched secrets of the Sumerians and Babylonians. Their cities may be long buried under sand and silence, but some of their whispers remain, pressed into tablets, stacked in forgotten vaults. And what they whispered wasn't just trade deals and harvests, it was something older, stranger, something sacred. You probably won't survive this. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. I once saw a photograph of the Enuma Elish, an ancient Babylonian creation story, etched into hardened clay. The letters looked like tiny bird tracks, and yet they told of God splitting the heavens from the deep. In their myth, Marduk battled Tiamat, the chaotic sea dragon, and fashioned the universe from her corpse. Sounds dramatic, sure, but here's the part that lingered in my mind like a dream I couldn't shake. They believed creation came not from light or love, but from dismemberment, from sacrifice, and from that act came structure, laws, and even time. But it gets weirder. Some cuneiform tablets don't speak of gods at all. They speak of stars, of alignments, of celestial gates. One recovered tablet, now sleeping in a museum drawer in Istanbul, casually mentions something called the Gate of Anu. Anu, by the way, was the sky god, the ancient CEO of their cosmic corporation. This gate, said to open only when the moon vanished and the stars lined up just right. Historians still argue whether it referred to a literal ceremony, an astronomical event, or something else entirely. A ritual portal, maybe. A lens into a frequency we've forgotten how to hear. There's a tablet, barely larger than a phone, dug up near Ur. It lists chants, short rhythmic patterns for invoking clarity and memory. Memory. Imagine that. A civilization obsessed with remembering even before they invented stories as we know them. What were they so afraid of forgetting? Maybe it wasn't events or dates. Maybe it was the feeling, the connection, the invisible pulse of things. And then there's the story of the Apkallu, the seven sage-like beings said to have risen from the sea, part man, part fish. According to one version, they taught humans architecture, math, and, wait for it, spiritual insight. Like how to commune with the heavens. Some even say they were the blueprint for later angels or watchers in other traditions. I mean, you try picturing a glowing half-fish librarian rising from a river to explain soul geometry and not get goosebumps. Here's a fringe gem. Some fringe archaeologists point to a pattern in the oldest ziggurats, those towering temple-like mountains made of brick. The dimensions they claim mirror not just lunar cycles, but even frequencies of brain waves in deep meditation. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe the bricks hummed when the moon was just right. But what if these weren't just temples? What if they were resonance chambers, energy amplifiers? Maybe the priests didn't just chant because it sounded holy. They did it because it worked. Imagine sound unlocking chambers inside you, like a key made of vibration. Sumerian healing tablets speak of diseases not just as physical afflictions, but as spirit entanglements. They had rituals for untangling them, gently, with words and breath. One involved breathing into a bowl of water, whispering the name of the affliction, then pouring the water back into the earth. Let the energy go. Let it return, like composting pain. The Babylonians had dream books too, thick ones, catalogs of what it meant if you dreamt of a lion, a falling tooth, or a red fish swimming upstream. Not just superstition, these were interpreted as messages. Your soul's inbox. Some priests specialized in reading them like emails from the divine. And yet, we barely talk about any of this. We call them the cradle of civilization, but mostly we teach their taxes and trade. Not the parts where they chanted to the stars or mapped the sky for signs. Not the fragments about summoning inner clarity through sacred geometry drawn in dust. One theory I can't shake says that they used math not just to count, but to calm. that each number carried a tone, and aligning your thoughts with those tones created internal peace, sort of like tuning your soul like a harp, a kind of numerical prayer. Just imagine your phone calculator doing that. And let's not forget the eerie consistency of flood myths. The Sumerians had one too. Ziusudra, their version of Noah, built a boat after a divine warning. But in their version after the flood, he doesn't just repopulate the world, he ascends. He vanishes into the realm of the gods. Why? Because he remembered. He kept the wisdom alive. He floated with it. Now picture this. Somewhere beneath the shifting sands of Iraq, a tablet still lies waiting. It may hold a lullaby to the stars, a breathing technique, a chant for courage, or a reminder that the divine was never in the sky. It was always in the breath between words. So tonight, as you exhale into your pillow, think of clay. Think of fingers etching sacred curves under a torch. Think of voices chanting in the dark, not for show, but because it mattered. Because each sound was a step toward remembering something they feared we'd forget. Sleep now, little archivist. The next chapter waits beneath layers of dust and dreams. Sometimes I think the jungle knows more than it lets on. Not just because of the sounds, the hiss of insects, the hush of leaves brushing each other like conspirators, but because of what it hides. Beneath that thick green silence, entire cities sleep. Tonight we step softly into the ancient world of the Maya, where pyramids once scraped the stars and priests may have read time like a musical score. The thing is, the Maya didn't see time as a line. They saw it as a loop, a spiral, an elegant return. Their calendars were symphonies of cycles, the Hab, the Tzolk'in, the long count. Historians still argue whether these were just practical farming tools or actual portals, windows into cosmic rhythms that we've long forgotten how to feel. One scholar said they may have mapped not time, but meaning. There's a stone carving in Kopan of a man holding his own skull. He's not panicking. He looks calm, like he's having a casual chat with mortality. Turns out, it's a depiction of a shaman in trance, meeting the spirit world halfway. The Maya didn't fear death the way we do. They called it a return, a homecoming, a resyncing with something bigger. Here's a fringe detail that gives me chills. In certain rituals, the Maya believed the gods required breath, not blood. Some ceremonies involve deep, rhythmic breathing, not unlike modern breathwork. One temple inscription describes a priest breathing the smoke of copal until the veils parted. Imagine that, hyperventilating not to pass out, but to pass through. And it gets weirder. One stele from Palenque hints at the echo chambers within certain pyramids. Acoustics so precise, a whisper at the bottom could be heard clearly at the top. Some suggest they were built to sing, to amplify chants, align harmonics, maybe even create shared altered states. Not bad for a civilization without modern tools. The Popol Vuh, their sacred text, reads like a bedtime story written by a lucid dreamer. Two hero twins battle lords of the underworld in ball courts and caves. But buried beneath the myth is a spiritual map. Trials of ego, sacrifice, renewal. The underworld wasn't just scary, it was necessary. Darkness was a teacher. And speaking of darkness, the Maya built entire observatories to track eclipses. They believed that when the sun and moon tangled, spiritual doorways creaked open. Not evil omens, opportunities, moments to reflect, reset. Even the stars had moods, and those moods mattered. Imagine planning your whole year based on how Venus was feeling. Now let's talk inscriptions. Glyphs so dense they look like secret codes, and maybe they were. Some tablets describe speech flowers, symbols meant to show not just what someone said, but how they said it. A sigh, a tone, a vibration. One theory suggests they believed words had weight. Say a thing with love, and it sank deeper into the spirit world. And then there's the Seba tree, again, that ancient cosmic axis connecting heaven, earth, and the underworld. Maya priests said it stood at the center of everything, and in ceremony they'd face its cardinal directions. I once read, that if a person stood at the right temple on the solstice, the shadow of a saber would split perfectly down the middle. Coincidence or sacred cartography? A lesser-known site called Yashilan has carvings that show figures emerging from the mouths of snakes. Not terrifying, transcendent. The snake was a symbol of vision, not venom. They called these events vision serpent ceremonies, where ancestors appeared in sacred smoke. Maybe that's what memory really is. Ancestral breath rising through the cracks of now. Want a fringe tidbit? Some glyphs describe star walkers, beings who traveled between worlds via the breath of fire. One account mentions a man turning into light, then vanishing. Some say it's metaphor. Others, well, let's just say ancient astronauts aren't only for late-night cable TV. But here's the part that humbles me. The Maya believed knowledge wasn't owned. It was remembered, recalled, given. Every priest was a student. Every chant had a source older than language. And when someone died, they didn't vanish. They became part of that memory, a note in the song of time. Sometimes I picture a Maya child sitting by candlelight, watching their grandmother trace glyphs in ash. Not explaining, just showing. Letting the meaning settle in like tea. No rush, no tests. Just truth pass like breath. And then there's the ballgame. Sure, it was sport, but it was also metaphor. Life as motion, ego as obstacle. The winner wasn't always the one who celebrated. Sometimes they were offered to the gods. Not as punishment, but promotion. As if saying, you've mastered the game. You may go. When Spanish invaders arrived, they saw only savagery and blood. They burned codices, toppled temples, silenced tongues. What was lost may never be counted. But what remained? Symbols in stone, songs in ruins, and stories, still whispered by wind weaving through the jungle vines. So if tonight you dream of firelight flickering on a limestone wall, of breath rising in rhythm with stars, of a voice chanting something you almost remember, don't be afraid. It's just a memory surfacing. One you may have carried long before now. Let it speak. There's a kind of silence in the desert that feels like it's listening to you, not judging, just waiting. Like the wind's been keeping secrets and might share one if you sit still long enough. That's the feeling I get when I think about ancient Egypt. Not the pharaohs and pyramids. That's the loud part. I mean the quiet stuff, the half-remembered, the lost. See, we've all seen the tombs and statues, right? Golden masks, Ankh symbols, gods with animal heads. But underneath all that shine was a deeply woven spiritual system, a web of beliefs so layered that even modern Egyptologists still argue whether it was philosophy, magic, or something in between. One fringe theory? That the Egyptians didn't just preserve bodies, they preserved knowledge. That mummification was symbolic, wrapping not just flesh, but wisdom. Every layer of linen a metaphor. Some claim certain spells were woven in with the wrappings, encoded frequencies meant to guide the soul across dimensions. Sounds wild, I know. But hieroglyphs do speak of words that cut paths through the dark. Now let's talk about the temples, those massive stone machines aligned with stars, solstices, and sacred rivers. Take the Temple of Dendera. In one relief, there's a strange image that looks suspiciously like a light bulb, no joke. It's been called the Dendera light. Mainstream scholars say it's symbolic, a lotus flower with a serpent. But fringe researchers say it could be evidence of lost tech, ancient illumination, literal enlightenment. And then there's the Library of Alexandria. Okay, technically not Egyptian, but it sat on Egyptian land and might have housed scrolls from much older temples. Some believe its foundations held blueprints of pre-dynastic civilizations, cities wiped out by floods, meteor impacts, or divine reset buttons. When the library burned, they say, a world's worth of forgotten truths turned to ash. Here's a historical fact that's less flashy than pyramids, but just as haunting. The Egyptians had no word for death. The closest translation? Westing. As in, going west with the sun. Doesn't that shift everything? They didn't fear endings. They navigated transitions. They saw life and afterlife as different chambers in the same pyramid. In tombs, you'll find the Book of the Dead, but that's a mistranslation. The real name? The Book of Coming Forth by Day. It's not a eulogy. It's a guidebook, a cosmic survival manual with maps and passwords. Because the afterlife wasn't passive, it was interactive. Your soul had to answer riddles, dodge monsters, and recite spells. One wrong syllable and you might get eaten by a crocodile-lion-hippo hybrid named Amit. Sleep tight. But it wasn't just about escaping monsters. The goal was becoming Ak, a luminous being, a light form. Think spiritual ascension with style. Some inscriptions describe the Ak as one who shines like 1,000 suns. Imagine your soul breaking free like starlight, joining the divine flow. No harp clouds, no halos, just radiant being. Want a quirky tidbit? Some tomb paintings depict people holding oddly shaped rods, smooth, tapered, with no inscriptions. No one's quite sure what they were. Flashlights, tuning forks, energy tools. Theories abound. One fringe idea claims they were harmonic stabilizers, used to balance the frequency of the user's Kai and Bia, aligning them for afterlife readiness. Real or not, it paints a picture of a civilization that didn't just fear the dark. They studied how to vibrate through it. And those sarcophagi? They weren't just coffins, they were cocoons, carved with star maps, healing hymns, and names spoken like spells. Because to the Egyptians, to be named was to be remembered. And to be remembered was to exist. Maybe that's why they wrote on every surface, a spell for every angle, every shadow. You know the Eye of Horus? It's on t-shirts and TikToks now, but it was once a symbol of healing and protection. Yes, but also a fractal of knowledge. Each part of the eye represented a different human sense: sight, smell, hearing, thought. A kind of ancient anatomy lesson written in symbols. Makes you wonder how much they knew, and how much we've forgotten to even ask. Historians still debate whether Egyptian priests were just spiritual leaders or something more, guardians of a forgotten science. Some texts suggest they knew how to store memory in crystals or use sound to lift stone. Most laugh at that, but then again, we still don't know how they built the pyramids. I mean, really no. Let me leave you with a softer image. Imagine a young scribe, thousands of years ago, sitting under a fig tree beside the Nile. He dips a reed pen into black ink made from soot and honey. He's copying a line from an older scroll. The ink smells sweet, the papyrus crinkles. He doesn't fully understand what he's writing, but he trusts it matters. He doesn't know that someday a tourist in a hoodie will stare at his words through museum glass and feel something stir. Maybe that's what lost knowledge really is. Not gone, just waiting, under dust, under stone, inside symbols we stopped trying to read. And maybe, just maybe, dreaming is how we translate them. So tonight, if you feel a pull towards something ancient, something warm and silent and wise, don't resist. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts unwrap like linen. And if you hear whispers in the hush, it's okay. They're just echoes of truths we once knew. It's strange, isn't it? How some of the world's most powerful spiritual systems were born not in megacities, but in shadowy mountain passes, incense-thick grottos, and quiet jungle clearings. That's where we're headed now, to Southeast Asia, a region where the air itself seems dense with forgotten prayers and unseen threads pulling at your soul. Let's begin in Angkor, the ancient capital of the Khmer Empire, nestled in what is now Cambodia. Most people know Angkor Wat. It's the icon on postcards, the world's largest religious monument. But what they don't tell you is how eerily perfect it is, aligned with the solstices, built in a layout that mirrors the constellation Draco. Its towers reflect the peaks of Mount Meru, the mythical center of the universe in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology. Some say Angkor wasn't just a temple, it was a portal. One French archaeologist once called it a map for the soul, and honestly, I believe him. Walk through its corridors and you feel it. The walls breathe. They don't echo, they absorb. It's like the stones remember. Now here's where things get weirder. Historians still argue whether the construction of Angkor Wat was purely for religious devotion or whether it was a power flex, spiritual and political. But let me hit you with a fringe twist. Some local legends claim the knowledge to build it came from beings not of this world, star teachers, sky ancestors. The kind of stuff that makes History Channel producers rub their hands together. Then there's Borobudur in Java, Indonesia. It's like someone took a mountain and turned it into a mandala. From above, it looks like a lotus flower blooming in stone. Each level represents a stage of enlightenment. You climb it clockwise, passing 2,672 carved panels, and at the top, pure silence. No gods, no scripts, just 72 bell-shaped stupas, each housing a Buddha in deep meditation. It's like arriving at the edge of thought itself. Want a historical fact? Borobudur was buried for centuries under volcanic ash and jungle. Locals forgot it even existed. It was rediscovered in 1814 by a British lieutenant. Which makes you wonder, what else is hiding under vines and soil, waiting for someone to remember? Let's detour to the temples of Thailand and Laos, places where monks sit cross-legged for hours without flinching, surrounded by gold leaf and stray dogs. Here, too, are whisperings of forgotten knowledge, scrolls locked in bamboo tubes, mantras passed from teacher to student without ever touching paper. There's a Thai term, phrakruang, which means monk amulet. Not jewelry, not trinkets. They were said to hold pieces of a monk's spiritual essence. Wear one, and you carried their strength. Quirky tidbit? In parts of rural Thailand, people still seek out forest monks, solitary practitioners who live in caves and are believed to have powers. Not stage magic powers, real ones. Healing, weather calling, even dream walking. They don't post online. They don't go viral. But people whisper their names with reverence. And then there's Bali. Oh, Bali. It's paradise with shadows. Behind the yoga retreats in smoothie bowls are ancient rituals that predate recorded history. Offerings made of flowers and ash, placed at thresholds to appease the Penungu. Guardian spirits who don't mind if you pass, but do mind if you're rude about it. Bailey's Subak system, an intricate water temple network, wasn't just about irrigation. It was spiritual hydraulics, a way to align farming with cosmic order. Historians call it genius. Locals call it common sense. Either way, rice doesn't grow right unless the gods approve. Let's not forget Vietnam. The temples of Hue whisper tales of royal mystics who consulted the stars before making decisions. And the Jiao Mao tradition, worship of mother goddesses, blends animism, Taoism, and Buddhism into a spiritual smoothie so potent it defies Western categorization. Mediums enter trance states, channeling deities with the help of music, color, and ritual. Some say it's theater, others swear it's real, maybe both. Historians still debate whether Southeast Asia's spiritual traditions evolved independently or absorbed influence from India and China. Truth is, it's messy. Ideas flowed like rivers. They got tangled, merged, reinvented. And in that chaos, something sacred bloomed. Now imagine this, a lone monk walking a forest path in Myanmar, barefoot on damp leaves. He stops, closes his eyes, and listens, not for danger, but for balance. He's tuned to something deeper, a frequency we've forgotten. Maybe he hears what we've lost. So what happened to all this knowledge? Colonization, war, concrete, tourist buses. Generations grew up learning about Napoleon instead of Naga. Scrolls were burned, caves collapsed. Some monks took their secrets to the grave. Others encoded them into dance, into shadow puppets, into lullabies. But here's the hopeful part. Not all is lost. Some temples are being restored by locals. Some chants are still remembered by old women who hum them while shelling beans. Some secrets are stored in stories, like this one. And maybe by listening, by remembering, you've just helped keep something alive. So tonight, as your eyes grow heavy and your breath slows, picture a jungle path lit by fireflies. The air smells of incense and wet bark. In the distance, a bell rings once, twice, a voice whispers, not in your ear, but in your bones. And you remember. I want you to do something with me now. Don't worry, it's simple. Just take a deep breath. Feel the air go in and out. That breath, that was spiritual technology. You didn't download it. You didn't buy it. You were born with it. But what if I told you that the ancients believed every part of your body held codes, divine ones, buried under skin, muscle, and memory? This is the hidden vault of lost spiritual knowledge, not out there in some temple ruins or on a broken scroll, but in you. Let's unlock it together. The Egyptians, remember them? Believed that certain sounds, vowels especially, resonated with specific organs. Chant the wrong syllable, and your liver might complain. Chant the right one, and it could purr. Sounds wild, I know. But in Chinese Taoist alchemy, they had a whole practice called 6 healing sounds, where each breathy tone cleared emotional gunk from different organs. The lungs weren't just for oxygen, they were grief sponges. Historians still argue whether these practices were metaphor or medicine, but tell that to someone who just sobbed and felt their chest unclench like an old drawer. Across the Himalayas, Tibetan yogis spoke of tummo, the inner fire. Not symbolic fire, actual heat. Monks wrapped in wet sheets would sit in freezing mountains and melt the ice around them using just breath and focus. Western scientists once measured it. No tricks, just neurons and ancient know-how. Want something fringe? Some old Indian tantric texts describe bindu, a spiritual nectar stored at the base of the skull. With proper focus, they claimed it could be preserved, redirected, even tasted. And here I am forgetting where I left my car keys. Let's talk chakras. Today you see them on yoga mats and smoothie bottles. But originally, they were maps. Not physical spots you could poke, but whirlpools of awareness. Spin too fast, you burn out. Blocked, you stagnate. The idea was to align them, not like pipes, but like planets in a solar system. Now, here's a kicker. In Native American traditions, some tribes believed that bones carried memory, not metaphorically, literally. A shaman could touch a femur and feel the sorrow etched into it. Some Pacific Island cultures believed tattoos weren't just ink, but contracts, spiritual agreements with ancestors, gods, and the wearer's own future self. Ever wonder why so many cultures placed hands on the heart when greeting, blessing, or swearing oaths? Because across time and geography, people just knew that the body wasn't meat, it was message. Let me whisper this. There are yoga poses no longer taught, mudras, hand gestures, that were said to open doors in consciousness. But they're absent from modern manuals. Some say it's because the knowledge is too dangerous. Others say we forgot the questions, so the answers disappeared. Even languages held power. Ancient Hebrew, Sanskrit, Egyptian hieroglyphs, they weren't just writing systems. They were sound codes. To speak them was to invoke forces. The name of a god wasn't just a label, it was a frequency. Say it right and reality rippled. Let me give you a shiver. In ancient Mesopotamia, priests would whisper names of the dead into clay figurines. The belief that the name itself could tether a soul to peace. Now we tap names into smartphones, then forget them minutes later. But here's the soft, aching truth. Most of this spiritual tech, this embodied magic, was never written down. It was sung, danced, breathed, passed from teacher to student through presence, not prose. When the teachers died without students, the songs evaporated. Yet, sometimes we rediscover them. A child breathes deeply before sleeping, intuitively calming themselves. An elder places a hand on their chest during grief, not knowing it's a healing mudra. A dream whispers an ancient word you've never heard, and you wake up crying as if you remembered something you never learned. Maybe you did. Historians don't catalog this kind of thing. It doesn't show up in textbooks or tour brochures, but it lingers in lullabies, in lull-like moments, in that hush when a room goes still and your skin tingles for no reason. That's the vault stirring, your body remembering its own sacredness. So tonight, maybe try something. Place a hand on your belly, breathe slowly, hum if it feels right. Imagine each breath as a key, turning gently in an ancient lock. Don't force the door. Just listen for the click. And now the breath slows. The journey unwinds like soft fabric falling from the loom. All those whispers of forgotten wisdom. You don't need to hold them. Just let them float. Like incense rising in still air. You've wandered through temples without doors, touched knowledge etched in bone, and stood quietly at the edge of a world that once spoke in breath, in fire, in rhythm. But tonight, there is no need to remember. The truths meant for you have already settled, gently, like dust on old stone. Your shoulders can drop now, your jaw can soften. The mind doesn't need to chase anything. It's done enough. Even the stars have quieted, folding their brilliance into soft pulses behind your eyes. They've always known the path, and now so do you. So breathe, slow and easy, like the tide turning towards sleep. If stray thoughts wander in, let them. They're just echoes, not alarms. Let them fade like footfalls in sand. Your bed is no longer a bed, it's a boat, gliding across a still lake under a sky made of memory. Somewhere the sages sleep. The monks hum their last note. The gods lean back and close their eyes. The candles have all burned low. And you, quiet, stardust-wrapped, thread of time, you are safe to drift. No more questions, no more seeking, just softness, just sleep. Good night, traveler. Sleep deeply. Sleep